show our approach at Reportedly. And before we formed in January 2015, four of us on the team had previously covered from a distance what had been going on through, indeed, Iona's reportage and through others, and using UGC and eyewitness content from there. And in our first week of reporting, I think there was a heinous bombing at the police academy in Sana'a where 30-odd people were killed, and through eyewitnesses there we were able to report on that. That was the same morning actually as the Charlie Hebdo attacks, but it was our first story that day. And I just wanted to present how we do that, and quite simply, have we got slides up on the screen? Yeah. Oh, they're up? Yeah? Okay, great. The reason for this picture will become evident as I go through it. And quite simply, a Twitter list of people who are there documenting day in, day out what's going on in Yemen is a really powerful tool just to monitor what's going on and to examine tips from that as to ways that we can get into the story and find other people who are related to that story, get them on the phone, find other ways of contacting them, and do searches for geolocated content or for other UGC using search terms. And even just mixed with traditional journalism, one tip like this, that the UN is evacuating its staff, it took several phone calls for us to get to the right person who was able to tell us that, but we were able to explain to people, again, we publish a lot through Twitter, what's going on and where they're being moved to, and so on. And by constantly engaging in this story and with the people who are involved in it and tracking it, and even retweeting them to our audience, what you do is over time you build up a relationship with people who are there. You understand who are actors who are more trustworthy than other people who have agendas. But more importantly, you're able to represent the people who are caught in the middle of this conflict. And I think that's where the strength of our journalism has been, whereas Iona's would be around the broader strokes of what's happening, as well as very much what's happening on the ground there. Some of you will remember Enduring America. They ran a daily blog of what was happening in Syria. We did something very similar on Yemen every day, publishing a Yemen digest about what was going on, what happened there, through people who were reporting from there. And even things like when various nationalities were being evacuated after the bombs started dropping on Yemen. A number of people were caught and couldn't get out. They were turning to Facebook, urging the State Department to get Americans out, and in fact turned out in the US and gave speeches, again urging action. And by linking in with these people, we got stories out about that. And this chap, Mokhtar, I won't try to pronounce his surname, when he left Aden by boat across to Djibouti, he sent us this selfie of himself escaping and gave us his story afterwards. So again, just representing, and Iona just said she's taken that trip several times in and out of Yemen. And terrible stories like extrajudicial killings and murder on the streets, and then the ransacking of news outlets and so on. Andy covered this one. And for mainstream media, you might think that it's something that you can't cover, or it's not worth covering, or nobody's interested in that. But metrics for our coverage of that on social platforms, show that the opposite is true. That when you focus and you deep dive on something like this and you cover it comprehensively with all the nuances that are involved, and you're publishing it to people directly to people's feeds, that they respond to that, and we got a lift in engagement around those particular stories. And this is very early on in I think we were only 3 months reporting, Andy, at that stage. The investigation, which I'll go into at a later presentation, step by step at 6 o'clock this evening, was when somebody came to us with shipping documents of bombs that were shipped from Italy to the United Arab Emirates. And this, by examining this and looking at export licenses that were granted, in Italy. We got help from Giorgio Beretta, who is an arms monitor here, and several other people as well, including Human Rights Watch, to verify this information. We basically tracked these bombs made in Sardinia from Genoa through Jeddah port in Saudi Arabia onto the United Arab Emirates, where they were assembled, and we tracked those bombs to the ground in Yemen. So we had a full chain from point of manufacture, shipped during an armed conflict where massive civilian casualties are being recorded, to forces that are bombing indiscriminately, it seems, areas where there are large civilian populations. And the reason that we know they were manufactured in Italy is the cage number, the manufacturing number on these bombs, who were photographed by Human Rights Watch researchers that were on the ground there, and I got in touch with them, and they were interested in the shipping lists and sent on these photographs in return. RWM Italia, and we also just found where they were dropped using the metadata in the photographs, and we were able to identify footage of the day after that attack. And of course, you apply your verification, looking at the buildings and satellite imagery just to make sure that, double check that these are the buildings that people say they are. And we produced this short documentary, a 2-minute documentary, using Google Earth to show the to trace these bombs through. And just a couple of other things, maybe if I just swipe over here. Again, Iona and human rights researchers with Amnesty and Human Rights Watch are the only sort of, I don't know, what would you call official documenters that are on the ground. And what struck me from the reports that they produced, Iona's and Ole Solvang's and Rasha Mo from Amnesty, was really the civilian death toll was just astonishing across the country. And to accompany one of Iona's pieces with The Intercept, I created this map of the eyewitness testimony plus the pictures that were taken of these places, and just tracked them across the country. Okay, these are Iona's photos with what the people said happened, and it really just put it into context just how many people are being affected by this conflict. And maybe we can circle back around and other things. But just to show you the Twitter list there, it's a live list with people there who are updating, from Yemen and related to it.
Thank you, Malachy, for this very